It's the Elsa Kurt Show with Clay Novak. Serving up trending news and conservative views. Brought to you by the Elsa Kurt Collection. And Refuge Medical. And now, it's time for the show.
Well, hello. How are you, Clay?
I'm good. How are you? You know, I just noticed I've been watching our intro for the longest time. You have more pictures of me with no baseball hat on than I think anybody on the planet. Just in that intro, because
that's pretty funny.
I'm always with the baseball hat. Always.
You know what? We need more with the baseball cap on because it's more reflective, right? It's purely by chance. I just pulled what I pulled. Isn't that funny?
Yeah.
How
are you?
I'm good. Yeah. I mean, what's going on? Let's see. Nothing really. I mean, obviously stuff's going on, but it's quiet. I just, sitting over here biding my time until the next grandbaby's visit. Can you believe this is wild to me? My fourth grandchild is due in just a matter of months. Like this pregnancy, at least for me, maybe not so much for her, has flown by. It's I did say grandbaby number 4. So yeah, my daughter and son-in-law will have 4 kids under 4. It's so wild.
Yeah, raise your hand in audience land out there if you don't think Elsa looks old enough to have 4 grandkids.
Oh, stop. Thank you. It's a good filter and good lighting is what it is. I feel it. My back tells me all the time, you are your age, lady, but thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I love, so my grandkids call me Oma, which is German. And if the Germans are going to come in and correct me and say it's Oma, I know it is. This is the way we say it. How we said it growing up. This is the way my grandkids are going to say it. It is what it is. But yeah. It's a heck of a gig, I tell you. Speaking of heck of a gigs, what we get to do today is a lot of fun. We get to talk about President Trump's first 100 days. That is our singular umbrella topic, right? Because there's so much in it to say, right?
Yeah, that's, it kind of hit me, what was that, Monday, I guess, that, we were at 100 days or fairly close at that point. And I was like, that's it for Elsa and I this week. We're going to do, I hate to say what everybody else is doing, but that's kind of what everybody else is doing. It's a 100-day, we're at the milestone and it's a good reflection point. So that's what you're getting from us today, folks, is 100 days, the first 100 days of Trump's second term. And that's what we're going to talk about. And we'll get started right after this. Hey folks, Clay Novak here, author of the novel Keep Moving, Keep Shooting. So what I've got here is the Boo-Boo 2.0 basic first aid kit. This is the one that you throw in your glove box, throw in the trunk of your car, keep in the house. It's got Band-Aids, antiseptic wipes, those kinds of things for scrapes and cuts. And some, more significant, there is a tourniquet in here. But Boo-Boo 2.0, this is the kit that you need all the time. Again, refugemedical.com. You can find it there. Use the discount code KMKS at checkout. Get yourself 10% off. Refuge Medical. Not only buy their equipment, but get their training. Refuge Medical offers training as well.
Ready to refresh your vibe? The Elsa Kurt collection has everything from page-turning reads to eye-catching fashion, guaranteed to add a little sunshine to your season. But that's not all. Love a good book? Elsa's got your next favorite read waiting just for you. Don't miss Elsa's Amazon affiliate store, filled with hand-picked beauty treasures, home must-haves, and daily essentials. It's like a personal shopping spree made easy. Make this spring your season. Shop the Elsa Kurt collection today and let the fun begin.
Well, if you believe the alphabet media, which I've taken to just referring to them as, because everybody's like mainstream media, legacy media, but I'm calling them the alphabet media because that's basically what they are. But if you only listen to them, you are going to believe that America is in this horrendous free fall and we're on the brink of destruction and catastrophe and all the things. But Clay and I are going to kind of peel back all these layers here, and we're going to talk about these first 100 days. And we are going to be much more fair and hopefully somewhat unbiased about it and give the good and the bad, right, Clay?
Yeah, I mean, you and I were talking before we hit record, and we were, oh, by the way, it's Wednesday. It's 4:30 on the East Coast. That's where we're at. So there's your time stamp. But we were talking about how, there's a couple of great articles out, or even some postings, I think, that you found on X, where we've got some solid evidence that the media, more evidence, I should say, that the alpha media, I like that, by the way, the alpha media is biased, and that even some of the polling is biased because it's taken out of context in the sense of, I saw a thing yesterday that a poll, and I can't remember which one for the life of me, they asked the secondary question of not, primary question was, how do you think President Trump is doing in this first 100 days of his second term? And then they asked the follow-up question of, who did you vote for? And so, that singular piece of information matters, because when you ask a significantly lopsided population of people polled, that leaned towards not voting for President Trump, you're going to get a similar response. They're going to follow along. So, don't believe everything the polls say, folks, because they are easily skewed. And those are some of the things that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. And, those polls it's just wild to me. And what's the most wild to me is that people believe it. They just run with it and think that's it. And I shared one of them. I think it was from ABC, who put him at like 39% or 36. I forget what it is now, right? Like approval rating. And then I got to think, I'm like, same thing you said. Hang on a second. I'm just curious about this. So did a little research here. I'm like, well, let's think about this. Let's use some critical thinking and think exactly what you did, which I know the majority of our viewers and listeners have already done the same exact thing and already dismissed polls like ABC's and all of the alphabet media polls that are, obviously so skewed. And I was able to pull up some different polling numbers, and let's see. So I've got them here. I'm going to tell you all what they are. Let's see. So I took some from some conservative and neutral sources. Okay. So Real Clear Politics, 45% approval, 51% disapproval. Rasmussen, 49% approval. Epoch, depends how you want to say it, I guess. I've heard both. Now, this is the most logical, right? It says Trump's approval highest among Republican voters, 85% approval, with an independent split of 44% approval. And, and I think that just lends to exactly what you were just saying. If you're going to poll this one group and not ask that secondary question, what are you going to get? You know what you're going to get. So this is more reflective of kind of stating the obvious. So, but the independents that is interesting. If the independent split is, 44% approval, I guess that would kind of lend to the question or conversation of saying, okay, so, basically the working class crowd is really pro-Trump. Those are probably going to be the highest numbers in favor of Trump, right? But there's a demographic that he seems to be losing. So what do you think that says about like his current strategy and what, if anything, he should do differently? Or do people just need to sit back and wait it out? I mean, because that's kind of my lean.
So I would tell you that it's topic to topic. And we're going to go over a lot of these, throughout the show. But I think topic to topic, patience is going to be important. And it's, interestingly enough, very selective, because what you'll have a group of people that will say he's moving too fast. He's doing this, he's not, using the system. Things aren't putting into law. They're not going through Congress. They're not going through the bureaucracy. They're not, and it's moving too fast, and he's using too much, too many executive orders, and he's bypassing the system, and it's dictatorial and blah, 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 blah. And those exact same people will turn around and go, well, these tariffs that he's put in place, we're not seeing any return on those, but right, because they've been in place for, less than 30 days. Right. So, the context of the subject matters across the board. And listen, folks, I'm not going to lie. People who know me, like when I went to college, like I took statistics in the math department because I had to, and I withdrew. And then I took statistics in the psychology department, and I withdrew. And then I probably took statistics in the sociology department. I had to have statistics to graduate, and I finally finished. But, the one thing that you learn attempting statistics 3 times in college is that there are lies, damn lies in statistics, and you can manipulate polls and statistical data to say whatever it is that you want. Right. So I don't put a lot into the hard numbers, because they can be manipulated. But I think what we're going to talk about is kind of the general feel we get, not just from what we see from our audience, from all of you, but really what we're seeing across the spectrum on the social media platforms, in the alphabet news sources, and then from really our interaction with folks like all of you that are listening or watching.
Yeah. Yeah. I love it. So let's talk about key successes. Let's talk about his key successes: immigration and border security. That's kind of like the no-brainer, right? That seems to be the biggest wow.
I agree. And I think most people agree. And I think, again, some of those statistics that back that up are, the number of interactions with Border Patrol are way down. Like that's, even if you say, that the numbers have been manipulated, a 96% drop, like even if they manipulated some, you're still in the 80s. You know what I mean? Like, there's still a
like
massive
you can't
drop.
manipulate it that much, right?
You've got the massive deportations.
Mm-hmm.
Folks will always pull the onesies, twosies. And listen, if it's a single person, it's a tragedy. If it's a mass number, it's just kind of is what it is. So, the guy from Maryland, the MS-13 guy, everybody's focused on that one person, but they're not talking about the other 111,000 or whatever it's been that have been deported. They're just focused on that one guy. But I would tell you, yes, key success. This is one of the things that he ran on. This is one of the things that people voted for him for, and that was to close the friggin' border. And if nothing else, he has done that. This administration with Kristi Noem, with Holman, DOJ, that whole team, they have definitely abided by that campaign promise and focused on closing the border. So I think that's a huge win for everybody that voted for President Trump and for his platform.
Yeah, absolutely. And even the people who are not happy about any of this, they absolutely have to agree that he's been a success in doing what he said he was going to do. So you may not like it. It may make you angry and stomp your feet and wave your little angry signs, but did what he said he was going to do. So, And by the way, is it just me? And granted, we all know that I only watch as much news as I absolutely have to, but is it just me, or have they kind of dropped the whole, what is his name? Garcia, blah, 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 Garcia. They've kind of just, are they moving on to a new poster child?
There's been a few that have popped up. I think Kristi Noem maybe yesterday or maybe even this morning said, so she was asked, what happens if he gets returned to the United States? She goes, we will turn around and immediately deport him again. So I think we're at the point now where, most folks in the American attention span, and truthfully, the fact that this was really kind of a hollow, outcry from the left. I think people are moving on. I did see, and this hasn't been fact checked, folks, but I did see that guy being represented as the dad from Maryland is not actually the dad of the children that are in his house, and that the actual father has petitioned for custody based on, or had petitioned for custody based on that guy living in the house. And again,
that one just gets messier and messier.
It's single source, hasn't been verified. But those are the kinds of things that are coming back up on this particular topic around that particular guy. So yes, to answer your question, I think most of America has moved on and said, we don't care.
Yeah. And I think, they being, the politicians and activists on the left, probably started backing off a little bit too, when you come to find out the other, which I can't 100% verify, but this seems to be widely reported, that he was hanging out with a drug or a smuggler, not a drug smuggler, a human trafficker.
Human trafficking. Yeah.
Human trafficking. Yeah. And so now they start to kind of go like, oh no, I don't know what you're talking about. We weren't talking about him. What? Yeah. Give me a break. Yeah. And I don't want to stay too long because we've got a lot of things to cover here, but I do just have to, once again, point out the hypocrisy and the irony of, where they choose to grandstand and get on their soapboxes. Where was all of this for the something close to 350,000 migrant children that seem to have disappeared? And I actually put a post out about that. So it's a little bit misleading when you say 350,000 children just disappeared into nowhere. The truth is just as horrific. They were, when they came across, as much as humanly possible, based on the massive influx. And of course, there's trafficking and smuggling and all of these things happening. So that's a whole other number that we couldn't even fathom, because we just simply don't know. But of the ones that we do know, they were actually documented, taken pictures of, the whole works. It was after that point that they essentially kind of disappeared for varying reasons. So the key difference here is that happened primarily under the Biden administration. And the difference is that the Trump administration actively currently right now is doing everything they can to actually find these children. So there's the difference. But where's the outrage for that? Where is all of the, fist thumping and all of the things for these kids? They're doing this for a thug, a loser, a piece of garbage who's, I'm just going to leave it at that. And we can just, there's a lot more I can say on it, but I'm going to leave it at that. Y'all get my point, right?
Yeah, listen, there's plenty of selective outrage out there. That's definitely one of them, and we're going to talk about, DOGE. Obviously, we're going to talk about DOGE at some point. But, the people who have been cut from government contracts, who've been cut from government jobs, those kinds of things. And there's, my friend who works for, such and such an agency and organization got fired, and blah, 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 blah. Where was the outrage from those exact same people when we were shutting down family-owned businesses, during COVID, when restaurants were going out of business, when waitresses couldn't get a wage to feed their kids, when, all of those things, it's the selective outrage, which I pay zero attention to, or I should say pay zero credence to, because again, it's a tragedy when it happens to you or someone, but when it happens to somebody else, then, it doesn't really matter that much. So,
and, and I don't want to say that that's just so typical of the left. It certainly is. And, it's a human nature thing. I get that, unless something directly affects you, you just don't care like you should. There are atrocities happening all over the world of the likes that we here cannot even fathom. Like, we cannot even imagine the atrocities that are happening. And we hear little blurbs of it here and there on the news, like a split-second blurb of it. But it's like, it's kind of like watching a movie or a video game and something bad happens and you're like, wow, that sucks. Anyhow, what are we having for dinner tonight? If it's not you, you tend to not care. It's definitely a flaw in our behaviors for sure. But yeah, I could don't let me take us off on a whole other tangent, Clay. Don't let me do it.
Okay. So the border, we both agree in general terms, the border's a big win. And again, that whole crew, the DHS, DOJ, Tom Homan, that whole crowd, they're doing a bang up job. And this is exactly one of the things that President Trump ran on. This was top of the list of his campaign, and he is following through and doing this. So, okay, that I think that's a winner.
That's a winner right there.
Yeah, and so I would tell you that DOGE is another thing that we all, that those who voted for Trump, voted for. We voted for shrinking of the government, getting rid of government waste, getting rid of the overspending, and DOGE has been the mechanism to do that with. Now, the question is, how do you feel about the way DOGE is conducting business? And I'll throw that at you.
Oh my gosh, that's a great question, Clay. It really is. So I am, my off the cuff answer is I'm fine with it. I'm good with it. I will say, for all of the things that are being done, I think we always have to, and I'm going to include, one of my biggest passion points when we talk about just to segue slightly for a second, like RFK and his initiatives and plans, for our health, essentially. All of these things, in my heart, I always want to make sure that is what they're doing constitutionally correct. So yes, I have to be honest. My initial knee-jerk reactions go, good, more, keep doing it, keep cutting it, keep doing it. My more thoughtful response would be, as long as it's within the constitutional powers and rights and things that should be happening. So kind of a vague answer, but that's my answer, Clay.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Hey there, I'm Aviva Klompus. The news moves fast, and it's not easy to cut through the noise and understand what really matters.
Okay, guys, we got to get off the roof.
So sorry to interrupt. We do now have...
That's why twice a week I sit down with former Israeli ambassador to Washington, Dr. Michael Oren, and other leading voices to dig beyond the headlines.
It is happening fast.
This is not something that's...
Let us go back, a 30,000-foot moment.
Subscribe to Boundless Insights wherever you get your podcasts.
I think initially it started off great. And if you remember right, USAID was top of the list. That's where they first, and they did a lot of slash and burn rolling through USAID, which I thought was easy pickings, which is, I think, why they started there.
Sure.
I think that DOGE got into a rhythm, right? They were using the algorithms. They were doing the research. They were, whatever they were doing mechanically to find all this overspending, it was working, and they were doing it. Oh, by the way, folks, Elon Musk, if you haven't caught this, has already moved away from the White House and is back essentially running Tesla. So for
which was the plan all along. This was
Right.
not a permanent thing. Yeah.
But everybody who has hated Doge and has been taking it out on Elon and all that stuff, they all thought he was going to do this for 4 years and he was going to be there. And there's the word oligarchy, which 99% of America didn't know what it was until 120 days ago.
Bernie Sanders, that's his favorite word, right?
Right. And now what's happening is exactly what we knew was going to happen. It was always the plan, which was under 130 days, because he was what's the title? Like special employee of the government, which meant he's a volunteer.
Right.
He can only stay on for so long, 130 days. So at 100 days, he's on his way out and he's going back to run his car company, which is great.
Yeah.
Now his team, some of those folks are staying on. Some of them are staying on as paid employees, and some of them will roll in, I probably in cycles and stay under that 130-day cap would be my guess. But regardless, the thing, they got into that rhythm of really slash and burn. And I think now that they've been doing this for a couple of months and they've gotten all the big chunks out of the way, now I think it's time to become more surgical. Not that there isn't more to find.
Sure.
And I am all for finding the fraud, waste, and abuse and getting it out of the government, truthfully.
Yeah.
But now I think that the big chunks have been cut out, right? Now we're getting into the point where it's going to take a surgical knife and not a machete to cut out the waste, right?
Right.
So I think a little bit more of a refined touch is what's going to be required at this point.
Yeah.
I think Doge will start to lose some momentum because the big chunks of money are, most of those have been found.
Right.
But I think conceptually, a huge fan of Doge, everything that they did, the way Musk did it, the team of whiz kids, I'm a big fan of, and I truthfully believe give them access to everything. And then put them into protective custody after it's over with. But I think Doge is a win. But I think just, again, a little bit of appetite suppressant for everybody. Doge is not going to last forever.
Right.
They're not going to keep finding trillions of dollars or hundreds of billions of dollars out there because they found all of that. And now it's the small stuff.
Yeah. It's served and is serving its purpose, which was to essentially clean the house from top to bottom. And then after that, and just like when you clean, once you've got it all clean, then you should be able just to maintain, right? Just keep up that maintenance work and keep a watchful eye to make sure that more clutter doesn't find its way in, and, dust doesn't settle into the corners. And, and I think that's probably, even though that's not the exciting part, of course, the big slashes and the big fines and all of those things are, that's what was exciting. And I agree, that was a really necessary thing for them to do, because they needed the shock value to show America what the heck has been going on. But, kind of like you said, okay, that the big stuff is done. We got the big stuff out. Now it's kind of like the quiet, boring work of maintaining, and that's not exciting to hear about, but man, oh man, is it, intensely important. And I think, the thing that I want to see the most of in the most consistent way is the transparency. Even though this is not exciting to hear that they saved, when we're talking about like billions of dollars, well, we just, found $100,000 worth of waste in this area. Yeah, I know that's not very exciting. But I want to know, who was messing around with our tax dollars. And I want to know that they got caught out for it. And, so yeah, Doge is definitely, in my opinion, also huge win, huge success. I think, go ahead.
The only that, just occurred to me in what you said is that, you want to know who, right? I think we've seen a lot of what with this, burst of Doge in the first 100 days, USAID, this program, this country, this program in this country, right? But what we haven't seen in any of that is personal accountability.
Yeah.
Right? And I think an overarching theme that I keep seeing all over the place is more arrests.
Yes.
And I think that's, kind of an overstatement, but I think what we're all asking for is accountability of the people responsible. And I think Doge was not designed to do that.
Right.
So I don't hold them accountable, but I would have liked to have seen from their efforts more of that. I think I would have, and I don't know how that would have worked. Maybe DOJ walks in behind them, or maybe not. Yeah. Somebody in there walks in behind them and says, "You are responsible for this." This whatever, whatever it was, the Sesame Street in Iraq or whatever it was, like, you're responsible for this. You're the one who, offered this up. It's a program under you. You've authorized the spending. You are being held accountable. That would have been, probably the icing on the cake. I'm happy with DOGE and what they're doing, but the thing we haven't seen is names on dry erase boards saying these are the responsible people. We haven't seen that.
Yeah. And I would imagine we speak for a lot of people when we say, I want to see that happen. That needs to happen. And, I'll give some leeway here and acknowledging that in 100 days, there has been so much. We can't even cover how much, if you wanted to like itemize and go into detail about everything, this would be like a 8-hour show. We'd still be talking, you know what I mean? Because there's so many, subcategories of things that have happened, specifics. So we have to talk in kind of like generalized terms. So when you think of it, that the picture is actually so much more refined, the closer you go into it, I think it's fair to accept that we're not going to see immediate arrests and all of those things. I do very, very strongly hope that as things progress, that these arrests will start to come in. And it doesn't necessarily have to be an arrest. I want to see whatever legal accountabilities there are for things like that. And even if that means a public calling out, well, we can't do anything to you legally, but that's the guy right there, or that's the chick right there that caused this particular thing to happen. And we just want you all to know it. So I'm okay with that if they can't get them in a legal sense. But
yeah, I mean, flogging in the public square, I'm okay with that.
I'm good with that.
Yeah. Some really, I mean, there's a lot to be said for embarrassment. Yes. I mean, to put somebody's name out there and hold them accountable for some stuff. I mean, that's it's interesting, kind of moving to the next big chunk. And that's, I kind of labeled it as education, right?
Yeah.
Because it's more than just DOE, because DOE was really, that was part of the DOGE, part of the slash and burn, part of that. And Mrs. McMahon, heading up the Department of Education and shrinking it was part of it. But education as a whole spans a lot of things. And in the first 100 days of this administration, we've had a lot of education related things, don't you think?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah. A ton of things. And I have to be honest with you, as much hope as I had from the get-go for the Trump administration doing the things, I have to admit, I'm still shocked that some of these things actually got done, like the dismantling of the Department of Education. And like, that's amazing to me that an institution that has been around since the 70s. Is that right?
Yeah.
I know it was like Carter era there. That in just one fell swoop, essentially, it was like, and you're done. And you're done. Back to the states it goes. So when you really think about it, like, I think and I include myself in this, like we get these moments of frustration like that. It's something's not happening fast enough. Well, how come he hasn't done it yet? He said he was going to do it. It's been 100 days. There's so many things happening, and it's just wild. And again, and we've mentioned this a bunch of times since he's taken office. People are so their heads on the left. I mean, their heads are spinning. They don't even know what to react to in any given moment, because they start to react to this and then that happens, and it's all happening at the same time. So it's like they can't even, and I know that's very deliberate, right? It has to be deliberate because they don't know what to lose their minds over next. So they just generally lose their minds.
Yeah. So, President Trump is, he went after the universities for anti-Semitism.
Yeah.
We talked about that last week. And then I just read a thing this morning that like Harvard did a big, we screwed up. They released a report, actually 2 reports, I think, that got melded into one, because they took anti-Semitism and then anti-Muslim. They had two committees that looked at it from both angles. They acknowledged that they screwed up, with their processes on campus, that it's not necessarily a safe place for either one of those, groups. What they need is for freedom of expression without repercussions from both faculty and students. And, so what you're seeing is, the impact of President Trump across, education. And this goes all the way down to like the Maine, the state of Maine and the transgender athletes.
Yes. Yeah.
He's like, listen, you're right. I can't control what happens in the state of Maine. I can make an executive order, but what I can do is I have the power of the purse and I can withhold funding, which is what he's doing.
Yes.
My home state of Illinois just stepped in and said the same thing, and they're going to pay the same price. And so, he from, again, transgender athletes in high school, all the way through the Department of Education, and in between, you've got university funding, anti-Semitism on campus, school choice. There's been a lot of movement under this administration, and again, that's just under the guise of education.
Yes.
So, has it all been a bed of roses when it comes to education? No, there's still a lot of ground to be gained, but there's momentum because we haven't seen any of that. It's been momentum in the opposite direction. So again,
we're seeing the turning of the tide, which is just an amazing sight to see. And I think much of the country, whether they do so quietly or very loudly like we do, are just breathing that sigh of relief that sanity is actually returning. Like common sense is coming back, practicality is back. And again, we're not saying that people of different persuasions, I guess that's the way I'll put it, don't have a right to a peaceful life or any of those things. I want you to live a happy, healthy, fulfilling life along with the rest of us. I just don't need to know everything that you're doing. You don't need to be the center of attention at all times. It doesn't need to be all about you. This is what's for the good of the country as a whole, not a very tiny percentage of the population that has managed to dominate essentially every conversation,
Yeah. And so we are starting to see a lot more pushing back against that, which is great. I think for the common American, you're starting to see a lot more acceptance of, what was before we took this huge left swing, normalcy, I think is what most of us would call it.
Yeah.
And you don't have to worry about being, I shouldn't say you don't have to be as worried about being attacked in public based on your beliefs if you're a conservative, which is good. We are starting to have, some more visceral reaction, which I don't like, violence and those sorts of things. J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, we talked about this, I think last week or 2 weeks ago, he did the whole, not a minute of sleep for all the Republicans. So, obviously that's, call it what you want. I think it's proof positive that what President Trump's trying to do is working. When you start getting reactions like that, but we expect more out of our elected officials.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a couple more of his cabinet success stories. Doug Burgum. Let's see. So he's focused on energy independence and land development for affordable housing, and wins among conservatives for scaling back on federal land grabs. So he's doing a great job. Marco Rubio is a huge joy to me, right? Like it's such a huge, I'm not saying it's the Cuban connection. Maybe I am. I don't know. But I'm so impressed with him. And I think it's a very universal sentiment. So impressed with him. And I really look forward to seeing more of who he's going to become politically in coming years, because I think he's a very promising man right now based on what he's doing.
Yeah, this opportunity for him as Sec State has been huge for his future glide path. I mean, he is. You're right. He what was he? 99%, I think.
Yeah.
Confirmed, right?
Yes.
So everybody was in support of this. So far, knocked it out of the park in terms of, accomplishing what I think President Trump wants him to, but also handling it very, very well.
Yeah.
He's extremely well spoken. He moves well and speaks well in public, et cetera. And so you're right. I think this sets him up for a long future. Now, if you want to talk international relations, you and I both, we said before President Trump got elected, and even right after he got elected, like he's going to fix Israel, Hamas, and Ukraine, Russia, drop of a hat. And he's been fairly successful with Israel, Hamas.
Yeah.
He has not been successful with Russia, Ukraine.
Right. Yeah. Well, little Zelensky there.
Yeah. It's there's some unforeseen pieces here. Everybody thought, he's in cahoots with Putin and, blah, blah, and all of those things. And he hasn't stopped that war. There is a ceasefire right now, although I think it's for celebration of the end of World War II or something like that. It's some sort of remembrance of some kind. So there's that. But Yeah, that one's been a little bit of a struggle.
Right.
And okay,
Yeah, I mean, let's be real here. You're talking about a problem, not unlike the obvious Israel and Hamas and all that. We're talking about feuds that have gone on longer than most of us in this country have even known that there was any issue. You know what I mean? It's not going to happen overnight. If anybody, but I'll be honest, my opinion is if anyone can make it happen, it will be Trump and the Trump administration who make it happen. And I think this to him being President Trump, I think this to him is just more incentive. Like he's not dejected by this at all. He's strategizing and working behind the scenes, and he'll figure it out. I truly believe that if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be him.
Well, I think the most important thing for America is that he's not a war hawk.
Right. He wants this done peaceably. So
yeah, and he's keeping us out of it, which is great. I think because under the Biden administration, we were headed down that path of very slowly but surely increasing our involvement everywhere from we're going to throw in this small piece under the NATO umbrella, and then by the way, we're actually going to throw in more than everybody else is, and then and we're going to get closer, and all of those things, and his mindset on this is absolutely not, which I'm all in favor of. So you're right, he'll get it figured out, and I think it'll come to some sort of conclusion inside of this 4-year administration before it gets handed off. It just may not happen as quickly as everybody wanted. Again, folks, 100 days.
Right.
But, he's ruffled some feathers other places. I mean, the election in Canada just day before yesterday, was proof positive of his. What do you think of him in the whole Canada and Greenland and all of that, and what he's done with those things?
You know what? I'm a little bit torn here because, I think a lot of Americans were saying, oh, he's just messing with them. He's just messing with them, telling me Canada's going to be the 50%. But he just said the other day, he's like, I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding. So, I don't know. I mean, I don't think we want Canada. No offense, Canada. I don't think we want you at this point because that's a lot of liberal votes there, clearly. So I don't think we really want them. But, I don't know. Is he messing with them or what, Clay?
I thought he was. I thought it was a smokescreen. But when he, did a press conference their election day or the day before their election day, and that to me was not messing with them. I think he truthfully, I think what he was trying to do, I think, is he's trying to rewrite the alliance between the United States and Canada. I think he was trying to help redirect the, political trajectory within Canada itself. And it kind of backfired because, their Liberal Party retained power. They went from bad to worse, from what I understand.
It really sounds like it.
He was an idiot, and nobody could stand him. But it sounds like this guy, is it Laney, I think, that's behind him, something like that. He supposedly is worse. So maybe that one, put that one on the back burner for a while. We'll figure that one out. Just worry about holding them accountable for the northern border, kind of a thing, and the tariffs associated with fentanyl, and let go of it. Greenland's interesting. I don't know how that one's going to play out. That one, I that has to be a joke, doesn't it?
It feels like it. I can't, the man's mind. Let me make some liberal heads explode. The man's mind is just absolutely brilliant. So whatever he's done, they're like, he's so dumb. What are you talking about, Blondie? You don't know. No, the man is pretty brilliant. So yeah, don't underestimate whatever it is that he has planned. I think it's, I don't know. I don't know what his strategy is here. People way smarter than me when it comes to this stuff need to weigh in and give their thoughts and opinions on this, because I'm baffled by it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, and I think there's got to be a direct, like you said, he's a chess player, extremely intelligent, so it's got to be related to the economy.
Right.
I mean, if it's not related to defense, it's definitely related to the economy, and so. That's one of the places where, President Trump's grades are very mixed when it comes to the economy.
Yeah.
In one hand, inflation's down.
Right.
Like the price of oil is going down. Those sorts of things. You've got a lot of people who are afraid about these tariffs.
The tariffs seem to dominate the conversation whenever you're talking about anything economic right now. That is the sore spot, right? That's the thorn right now. Everybody's freaking out.
And that's the place where he keeps telling people to show some patience.
Yes.
I agree with him 100%.
I do as well.
Yeah, you've got to wait. Like this is going to be, it's going to be 90 to 120 days from the 1st of April before we see the impact of any of this. I think you can't expect an immediate impact. It takes a while, even for financial data to be collected and analyzed and all that stuff. So you're not going to get it right away. Although, some people did you see the Amazon thing where they were? Yeah,
I did. Yeah. So they were going to, I don't know if anybody else saw that. Caroline Levitt kind of ripped into Amazon, Bezos, for apparently they were going to put a little block there to tell you what the cost for the tariffs would be on their items coming from other countries. They have since denied that they're going to do that. Is that correct? Like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. What? Yeah.
They flipped in an hour.
Yeah.
So it was we're gonna. And then, it became public knowledge through the White House press secretary. And then Amazon quickly stepped backwards and said, no, we're not going to do that. Yeah. And listen, I have no problem with them doing that, except for the fact that there's no way that it's accurate or that you would be able to tell. Because the tariffs are going to skew the market regardless.
Sure.
So there's a lot, there's a lot to be said for that. And I'm glad that they're not doing it because a lot of people, I think, would get some bad information or a bad impression. But the tariffs in general, everybody's just got to be patient.
Yeah.
You've got to be, I read an article this morning that China's in a panic right now. And that they are showing signs of end of regime activities. In other words, you're starting to see some panic inside the senior levels of leadership inside of China. And they're making decisions that are kind of irrational and listen, folks, don't freak out. We're not talking nuclear war, but there's some indicators from some political scientists who are watching this and they're saying it looks like China is at the end of this administration, of this regime, by the way that they're acting. And a lot of it is attributed to how they're handling these tariffs from the United, in exchange with the United States. So the impact that President Trump wanted, I think, as far as diplomacy goes, is working.
Right.
But we won't know the economic impact. Folks, I'm not an economist, but my guess is we're talking, 90 to 120 days from now, or even from the 1st of April before we know if this is working or not. People have to be patient.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, and I know I'm not the only one who is saying this, and I feel this very strongly. I am willing to pay a bit more for a short period of time, if that means bringing more companies who have left and gone overseas, if that means bringing more American companies back to America, employing more Americans, having more American-made products, better, stronger, all of the things that are the entire point of what he's doing. This is his goal in a nutshell: America first, American made, all of those things. So if that means paying a little bit more, it's going to make me do? It's going to make me spend a little bit less on stupid crap that I don't actually need. So everybody,
I'm sure your husband will appreciate.
He will. I'm just going to isolate this one clip for him. Actually, I'm going to isolate this one clip and take it out so he doesn't hear it. But let's be real, guys. We all are spending stupid money on crap that we don't need or necessarily even want. We're just getting it because it's so damn cheap. And and no, I'm not saying that you shouldn't have the right to buy cheap shit if you want to buy cheap stuff. Knock yourself out. But it's just going to help you. Help him help you.
So here's the other part about patience with the economy is that, we've had a bunch of not just companies, corporations, large auto manufacturers and other things. We have had whole foreign nations talk about reinvesting or investing in the United States, from manufacturers, auto manufacturers, et cetera, bringing factories back to the United States, bringing production back to the United States. Right. We've had foreign nations talk about investing in businesses in the United States. Folks, it is going to be a few years before we see and feel and understand the impact of that because factories don't pop up overnight. It's not how it works. But, wouldn't everybody love to see, Detroit back on the map as a manufacturing hub for the United States again? How awesome would that be?
That would be so cool.
And put Detroit back to work.
Yes.
And
yes. They are so hard hit.
right. And so, with those things, unemployment goes down,
Sure.
right? And
Yep.
and the cost of things goes down too, because now you're not paying import taxes, you're not paying tariffs, you're not paying, all of those things, which is all part of the plan. But people have got to be patient.
Yeah.
The worst thing we can do is whiplash on this.
Yes.
The worst thing we can do. So,
and I think a large majority of the right understands this. I mean, let's face it, as always, we're quite a bit preaching to the choir, right? So there's probably a small percentage of people on the right that are getting nervous and getting anxious about all of these things and maybe just wish he would stop. But that is the message. Be patient. We're only in the first 100 days. There has been so much movement that is happening, and every single bit of it has been for the betterment or to the betterment of this country and us, the people who live in it. So, we can give a little bit of grace and patience and, if need be, tighten our wallets a little bit here and there. I mean, I think it's so worth it. I think what he's trying to accomplish is so worth it. I mean, it's just such a game changer for this country to be able to get these things in motion. And I go back to what I said earlier to answer one of your questions. Yes, I want everything to be constitutionally appropriate. That's a given. I think we should always be watchful of that. And the people who know the Constitution better than I do, I do want to hear what they have to say, and if they point something out, I definitely want it to be paid attention to, but overall, generally speaking, this is all good stuff. I mean, let's see. So who did we talk to? We talked about Marco Rubio, Doug Burgum, talked about DOGE.
Listen, you're the RFK girl.
Oh,
right?
my gosh, here he is right here. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know.
So how do you feel? Give him a grade for the first 100 days that he's been. And I know he hasn't been in the seat for 100 days.
Sure,
but,
right.
Where we're at this mile marker right now, how do you think he's doing? I know you've been a huge advocate for him for a long time. So what do you think?
Yeah, again, I'm always trying to temper my natural impatience for wanting everything 5 minutes ago with the actual work that's being done, the progress that's being made. He's pushing for vaccine transparency, which is, monumental. Some people would say he took a misstep if they didn't actually watch the entire thing and listen to what he was actually saying about the link or the effects of autism in people with autism. That was misconstrued very deliberately. And then, of course, people ran with that. But the people who have severely autistic children and adult children are giving him high marks for what he's doing and what he's trying to do. The dyes, getting the toxic chemicals and dyes out of our food sources is phenomenal as far as I'm concerned. I would like to see that happen much faster than this 2-year grace period. Interesting thing about that, I wanted to look up okay, so why 2 years? Why can't you just stop, make it gone? And I found some compelling information about it that, this whole process of testing and blah, 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 all these things and reformulating and all that stuff. It takes time and money and research and all that stuff to reconstitute. And I was going with that. I'm like, okay, all right, now that's fair. And that makes sense. Things take time and money and all of that stuff. Fine. But then a lot of people, and I posted about it, and a lot of people in the comments yeah, how about just do whatever Europe's doing because it's already been figured out. And I was like, oh, well, now I feel dumb. Well, I feel like a dumb. So yeah, I'm a little torn on that one because I do have a problem with this 2 years to comply thing. So again, like we always ask you guys, weigh in. I want to know what you think. If you have more insight, better information than I do on that, and you can, kind of qualify that whole 2-year thing. But at the moment, that would be the thing I have a problem with. Love that he's going to get the fluoride out of our drinking water. Again, 100 days in office, not him specifically, but it's going to take some time to get all the things actively rolling. I just hope it's not especially long. Just faster. But I'm patient-ish. So I'm pleased to answer, to wrap up that long-winded answer. I am pleased with the progress that he's making. I'm looking forward to seeing more and more and more.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And I think, to your point of constitutionality, I think if there's anybody in this cabinet, and I would put him on par with Rubio, if anybody's going to follow constitutionality and like the legal processes and look, find a balance between, taking care of American citizens and at the same time not bankrupting American companies, which would put American citizens out of work. Like, I think that's the way Kennedy's mind works. He's like, well, I could shut down such and such company and tell them, hey, you can't do anything until you fix this or you change this. They're going to have to lay off, how many thousands of workers until and I think he's a guy who sees that and says, okay, we've been sucking down whatever this crap is for however many years. We can suck it down for another year and a half to make sure that we don't also put people out of work at the same time. So I think he's a guy like that. I think that,
and the national, that's a really great point. I'm so glad you said that, because that does add some more perspective to the whole conversation about that. And I think, if we want to look at all the good points of this, one of the greatest points of this is that he's bringing this problem to national attention, where there was just, pockets of people who knew and believed this to be a problem or a concern or an issue. And now this has gotten such national attention. And so, yes, within the next 2 years, y'all been told the stuff is known cancer causing agents are in this. It is linked to autism. It's linked to behavioral problems. It's linked to all of these things. You have the choice. If you want to keep consuming it, if you want your children to keep consuming it, keep buying that stuff, I guess, and until it's no longer available. But at least it's informed decision making, and I think, again, and I do this every episode. I pick my word of the night, and my word of the night is transparency. These companies, these corporations have to be transparent. End of story. So I guess if I had to do my biggest ask of RFK Jr., it would be to demand transparency. And not just this, because we know what they do. We know what these corporations do, these food corporations do. They're required, the FDA requires them, feelings about the FDA, by the way, but skip over that for time constraints. Yes, they are regulated as far as they have to put their ingredients on their labels. We all, if we're all paying attention, and maybe some people don't know, those ingredient lists are so manipulated. So when they're told that they can't use, I forgot what it was. It was corn syrup. No more corn syrup. Okay, no problem. We're not going to do that anymore. So they just renamed it and called it something else. There's so many things in our food that's insane, like salad dressing. I'm going to get on a tangent. This is the only thing I'm going to say about salad dressing. Has wheat in it. If you have a wheat intolerance and you're having salad dressing, odds are that's the reason why you're feeling sick, by the way, and everything else. But to wrap that up in a bow, I want the transparency. So, you can't be calling something by a different name and trying to sneak it past us. So no more of that. So if he can do that, that would be great. I'm sure he's watching.
Yeah, well, he should be.
He should be.
Yeah. No, I think he's another one that we've just got to wait and see. We talked about Marco Rubio. We touched on DHS. We haven't really touched on defense all that much. And listen, folks, there's a lot of people who like Pete Hegseth for a lot of reasons, and a lot of people who like him for a lot or don't like him for other reasons. I think in fairness, and I'm not an advocate. That's not a secret, but he's catching a bad rap for a lot of stuff that is well below his eye line. Like, I don't know if you saw this. There was an accident on an aircraft carrier the other day. We lost a $70 million fighter plane, and
I did see that.
Literally went right off the side. Somebody tried to blame Secretary Hegseth for that.
Well, that's
like,
just
come on, it's absurd. It's a trend. It's this. It's that. No, it's not. Okay, accidents happen, and that's one of them, right? They tried to blame him for, and again, this is all perspective. They tried to blame him and the president for the helicopter crash. They tried to blame the Biden administration for the helicopter crash, right? We're now just learning, what happened in that helicopter crash, and that young female pilot didn't respond to the instructions that were given her from an instructor pilot. Nobody knows why. You can make a lot of assumptions, but he's getting the bad rap for some things. Okay. I would tell you there's some program cuts that have happened that have been his decision, that people need to pay attention to. Some of our capabilities are being cut in a very DOGE-like fashion across Department of Defense, where I think there's surgical cuts that need to be made.
Sure.
I think there's some revolutionary thought processes that are going on. There's a call right now for a massive cut in the number of generals and admirals across the services, which I am a huge supporter of. We have way too many. And I'm a big fan of cutting those down, because when you cut that, it's a self-licking ice cream cone. When you cut them down, all the bureaucratic processes in the Pentagon start to go away. Or when you cut the processes out of the Pentagon, then the generals and admirals who are part of those processes also go away. So they're eliminating some of the bureaucracy. I don't like the slash and burn approach within DOD on the DEI stuff. There have been a lot of things that have been taken down and then reinstituted under this guise of eliminating DEI. Like, listen, when you take out, and this happened, okay, this is not, these aren't like, social media falsehoods.
Right.
Out of directive or misinterpretation of directive, teachings about the Tuskegee Airmen were taken out of professional development because it related to, they were the first all black, fighter unit in World War II. Well, we're not focusing on, there were pictures of the first female, fighter pilot taken down. There were, and like that's dumb. It is dumb. Right. And I hope that is not the intent of this administration and specifically this secretary, but those things are happening because it's been massive policy shifts. And I think they've either been taken out of context, or if those were really if that's really the intent, I think it's a horrible decision. So, there's a lot of things going on. And I think, again, DOD is a place where the scalpel is required versus the machete. And I think there's been a lot of machete stuff going on.
And it could be a case of the, similarly to DOGE, big splash, big, wow factor. And then let's take it down a notch and just do what we need to do a little bit more quietly. Because let's face it, when the Trump administration came into office, high expectations from all of us. And we were very, very demanding of what we wanted. And I think there was probably this sentiment that, like, listen, if we don't deliver huge and fast, we could lose people, So, there's got to be some strategizing with that. Like, let's come in like gangbusters, go big, wild.
It's the 2-year mark, right? That's what everybody's been afraid of. And, and again, and one last thing about Hegseth is recruiting retention numbers are through the roof right now. Right? That's a huge pendulum swing from the last 4 years. Although recruiting is very high, I think retention is kind of at it's not bad. I think it's only improved a little bit. And I say that because there's a lot of people who were thriving in the previous under the policies of the previous administration that are not thriving under the current administration, and they are choosing to leave the military. And fine. But retention is up and recruiting is through the roof right now. So good on them. But back to your other point of coming in gangbusters, the 2-year midterm mark is the fear. Right. We've got to get as much done, as we can in these 2 years before we potentially lose control of Congress, and therefore we won't get anything done. So that's where I think, we're preaching patience, you and I, for the past hour. We've been preaching patience and a lot of it matters. But the administration is moving at lightning speed because they feel like they're on a clock. That clock ends at midnight after 2 years. And they're potentially going to lose control of Congress, and then everything comes to a screeching halt. So I think that's why it feels like everything's on fire right now. But overall, right? I think we're
overall.
Right? Where are you sitting? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I mean, I still feel as energized and loyal as I did day one. Actually, we'll go further back than that. As long as he has been in political existence, this time around, more so than ever. My loyalty remains unwavering at this point. The cabinet always has my cautious optimism. And that includes, when we talk about that, as we know, and as we talked about earlier, I've been almost ironically touting RFK Jr.'s role from the get-go. And it's still the same mentality. It's cautious optimism based in high expectation that can shift on a dime if he's not doing what he's supposed to do. And that goes for any one of them. None of them have my loyalty. Trump has a great deal of my loyalty, but it's always conditional, man, right? Like, you got my loyalty as long as you continue to earn it. And that's been the case for me with Trump specifically. He has earned that loyalty as far as I'm concerned. I'm not speaking for anyone else. But again, nothing is ever, or nor should it be from anyone, blind loyalty, blind devotion. It should always be based in expectation, like a demanded expectation. And that's the only way we should ever look at any type of leadership, right?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a what have you done for me lately? I think they've got to continue to earn trust every day, and continue to earn the votes that they got.
Yeah.
I would tell you I think, I am a huge fan of small gov. So the more we can cut, the better, the happier I am. And I'm a huge fan of all of that. Way too much money wasted in bureaucracy. Yes. I think way too much NATO reliance on the United States. And I'm glad that we're backing away from that. Big applause for that. There's a lot of, I'm shocked at the amount of things that have gotten done in the first 100 days. Yeah. I do advocate for patience. I think probably my biggest disappointment thus far in the entire thing is Kash Patel has done really nothing. To the point where I thought for sure when they handed him the ATF on top of FBI, I was like, there's the next target for DOGE, slash and burn, get rid of the whole thing. And I'm a big fan of getting rid of the ATF. I think it's a complete waste. But literally did nothing to the point where they took it away from him and gave it to the Secretary of the Army to manage.
Clay, what do you think happened there? What do you think is going on with that?
I don't know. And I have zero insight. I have zero inside baseball on that one. I don't know. It's been deathly quiet, which is so odd. We really haven't heard anything from him since he took over. And I don't know if that's on purpose. It's an uncomfortable silence for me. And taking away ATF, the picture that painted was he's either overwhelmed or incapable or less capable than what they assumed. So I'm very curious what's going on with the FBI, with Kash Patel. If he's staying out of the limelight on purpose, if there's something big brewing, I don't know. But that to me has been the biggest swing and a miss, I think, in the first 100 days. But patience. But I do really like the ATF's got to go. Like get rid of that. But other than that, I'm impressed so far. I think he's doing pretty well, better than anticipated and more than anticipated. So it's pretty good first 100 days.
Yeah, I mean, I would probably give a quick guess that maybe one of the biggest disappointments that the right would pick out is that, we had extremely high expectations based on what was said for the Epstein files. That probably is the big sticking point right now. Again, and we've talked about this before. I think you used the phrase overpromised, or both of us used the phrase overpromised and underdelivered. My hopes for that have diminished greatly, which elevates your disappointment in the handling of that. So again, wait and see, I guess. I mean, I really can't do anything else. There's like literally nothing else you can do, right?
Yeah. And unfortunately, the probably the biggest living witness accuser just passed away. Yeah. She killed herself in Australia. So again, a missed opportunity. So that's a great catch, because that is, I think, I know they released the JFK files, which I don't think we got anything out of that.
Not really. Nothing that wasn't already kind of widely known. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah.
And we haven't heard anything on RFK or Martin Luther King or any of the rest, or Epstein. So that's a big swing and a miss too. That's a great catch, because that was touted as something we were going to get, and we haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Yeah. That's, so that's, I mean, I guess if I had to pick the disappointment, in my eyes, it would be that one. Otherwise, everything else I have been overall, pleased with and anticipate, a lot more. That's the expectation. A lot more to come. President Trump is always promising. You haven't seen nothing yet.
We've just gotten started. You haven't even seen anything yet. It's all just kicking in.
And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on that one, that we are going to be regularly blown away throughout this term. Yeah.
Listen, folks, patience. And don't forget, in 2 years, when the midterms come, you got to vote as hard as you did, for the presidential election. Otherwise, all this stuff comes to a screeching halt. So,
right. Yeah, that's probably going to be the next big challenge, right? To keep everyone fired up, because that's what happens when everything's going well, going great, and you're happy, you get complacent, you get relaxed, and you're like, somebody else it'll be fine. We're good. Nope. Never assume that we're fine and that we're good. Always expect to be in the fight all the gosh darn time. I have one last closing thing to tell you that I keep forgetting to mention. I have a new book release coming out on May 6th. Yeah, I kind of forgot. And I know that sounds ridiculous. You get to the point, and this sounds like a humble brag, and I apologize for that. This is like my 26th book, I think it is. And you get a little, I don't know, complacent with it, scatterbrained about it might be the better thing. I have so many projects going on at once. But anyhow, Truth Bombs and Grace Grenades is coming out May 6th. You can pre-order it now. I'll throw the link in there somewhere. And so I am, believe it or not, despite what I'm saying, I'm so excited for this book to be out. It's, as you can guess, it's geared towards the Christian audience. And I hope you guys will buy it, review it, love it, get some great insights from it. And so that's my big thing. You got any big exciting tells, or are you going to keep us in suspense?
I hope that I get to the point where I'm like, oh yeah, my 26th book is coming out. No, I'm still on track. All my stuff's still on track. So we got, release of the second edition of Keep Moving, Keep Shooting by the end of May. And then the sequel, which is called Cross to Bear, will be out 4th of July. Still on track.
Awesome.
It's not 26. It's 2. But congratulations to you, lady.
Thank you.
Super impressive. I'm very, very happy for you.
Thank you very much. I'm excited too. All right, my friend, you go ahead and close them out with the good word for the day.
Hey, folks, patience, patience, patience. That's all I'm going to keep saying. Just take it all with a grain of salt. Things are going the direction that we want them to, and you got what you voted for. So, as always for me, keep moving, keep shooting.
Take care, guys.
Warrior, leader, author, patriot. From ranger school to the battlefield, from the front lines of combat to the front lines of culture, retired Lieutenant Colonel Clay Novak isn't done fighting for truth. Catch him on the Elsa Kurt Show and read his no-holds-barred blog at claynovacauthor.com. Keep moving, keep shooting.
If you've ever looked around and thought, this isn't normal and it sure isn't biblical, you're not alone. And guess what? You're not crazy, you're discerning. That's why I wrote Truth Bombs and Grace Grenades, a bold, unapologetic book for believers who are done being silent while the world screams lies. From gender confusion to political idolatry, from woke theology to spiritual apathy, we're hitting it all straight on, straight up, and backed by scripture. This isn't a rage-fueled rant. It's a rally cry, a wake-up call to stop apologizing and start boldly living out the gospel. Whether you're a new believer or a disillusioned disciple trying to find your footing again, this book is for you. It's packed with truth bombs, grace-filled strategies, and practical tools to help you speak truth with love, raise warriors, not warriors, dismantle lies with biblical clarity, and rebuild with grit, grace, and gospel power. The culture doesn't need more compromise. It needs courageous Christians. So if you're ready to push back against the chaos with bold faith and real truth, grab your copy of Truth Bombs and Grace Grenades on May 6, 2025. Let's shake things up with truth and grace.